Hello and welcome. This is my first Facebook Live presentation, so I'm hoping you can hear me and that all is going well, and perhaps you will indicate that that is so. This evening, this is one of a regular workshop that I have been doing since the beginning of the year, and a number of you I know have been attending those, and we have used Webinar Jam up to now. And for the first time, we are using Facebook Live. So hi Debbie, hi Janet, delighted you're here, and Wendy, great to see you. I was just saying this is a new adventure, trying out Facebook Live for the workshop, hoping that it'll be easier for people to join and to catch up with it later than it has been with Webinar Jam, where there's been lots of difficult kind of problems. So Janet, I am hoping that you will be able to also do your usual helping out, which would be brilliant. So people are coming in and joining. Hi to you all. I'm going to just talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing. So it is, first of all, a little bit about me. Hi Marie, thanks for joining. Hi Janet, two Janets on board this evening. Be great if you let us know where you're coming in from also. I was able to see that in Webinar Jam, but can't see it here where you're coming from. I presume, as usual, we have people in from all around the world. So yeah, just going to talk a little bit today about business block. But before I get into that, I will just start off by talking a little bit about me and then a little bit about who this workshop is aimed at. So I am Orna Ross. I think most people who are in the room know me already. I know you guys, most of you, and hi to Nick in North Carolina. And that's a new attendee, I think. So yeah, I am director of the Alliance of Independent Authors. I know a number of you know me from that. And I'm also director of the Creativist Club. Ally, as we call the Alliance, is for indie authors, people who are interested in self-publishing a book, but more importantly than that, have a mindset around independent publishing. And hi Alison. Yeah, the Creativist Club, on the other hand, is very much focused on creative entrepreneurship, and it has members that are authors, yes, but also artists and yogis and various other kinds of people who are interested in running what I call a passion-powered business, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I also write novels, mostly literary historical fiction, which take me a lot of research and a lot of delving into to write, and I write poetry, usually inspirational type stuff, or haiku. And most importantly, I guess, I am an advocate for indie authors and for creative entrepreneurship, and more recently, which is really important to me. So yeah, you will be a creativepreneur of some kind, I am assuming, which in my definition doesn't just mean that you are employed in what is traditionally called the creative arts. You might also be a coach or a counselor or a healer, an educator. I have lots of examples there. An activist, maybe a change maker. Essentially, a digital mover or shaker or maker is how I think of it. And it was, I think I mentioned this the last workshop we were talking about. It was Kimberly, one of our members, who made me realize that coaches, counselors, people who are working now in the digital space in the way that are very, very similar to authors and artists, in that they are working from their passion, and that always creates a certain way of working, a certain way of thinking about business that is very different from a business that is mainly profit motivated. We too are profit motivated, of course, but the passion, the mission, the purpose. These things are really important to us, perhaps more important than money, though I would argue very much, and very much what these workshops are about is that you don't have to make that choice. It's not either or, it is both. So that's the kind of people that it's for, and they are the kind of people who are in the Creatives Club. And along with these workshops, there is the invitation to join that club, but there are lots of other ways to join in too. Okay, so this month we're going to be talking particularly about business block. Hi, Julie. Good to see you. You made it. I hope it was easy to find. The idea of doing this workshop was that on Facebook Live this time, trying out that platform, was that it would be easier to find. So hopefully it was. I see James saying, found it, as if it was a bit of a struggle. Was it, James? Let me know, because what I want to do is try and make it as easy for people to join and have access as possible. Okay, so business block, what am I talking about? Well, everybody knows about writer's block, and people talk about it a lot, and on the internet, on Facebook, here on Facebook, I think most days writers are on talking about, why am I not writing? Why am I blocked around writing? And so we're familiar with that, but actually I would argue that business block is a far more pervasive thing in our community. And so just to quickly run through what we'll be talking about, first of all, I'll talk a little bit about what I mean by that. And then I'm going to talk about the various ways in which it can show up. And we'll look at what they are. And you may find that more than one of them is applicable to you. So hopefully you have pen and paper at the ready. If you don't have pen and paper at the ready, perhaps you just go and get some. There is no download or anything for this workshop, and just simple free writing on pen and paper is going to do for this. Okay, link took you to web page, needs to be in the Facebook app. Didn't realize I had to click on videos. Okay, looks like I am going to have to work this out a bit better for the next time. So yeah, I will gather in your experiences afterwards and make sure that I give instructions next time out. I thought Facebook was going to actually make this easy and do the alert for me. Anyway, some of you are there. Marie Claire thinks she's going to have to leave, struggling to get it to stabilize. I'll be interested to hear more about that afterwards as well. But hopefully, actually, if you turn off other things that are drawing on your internet signal, that might be the problem. But the workshop will be available afterwards, so hopefully you'll be able to tap into it then. Okay, so yeah, what is a business block? Let's talk about that first of all. So what I'm talking about is the fact that as writers, as artists, as yogis, as meditators, as coaches, as counselors, whatever it is that we do, the thing that we love to do, we find ourselves in business. The second, for example, we become a self-published author and we put a book up on Amazon, there we are, we're in business. But very often we take that move without fully realizing that that's what we've done. Or if we are in business, we kind of resist it. We find a lot of business talk perhaps is too mechanical, doesn't really speak to us. The language, the vocabulary, and also what I was talking about earlier, the profit motive can leave a lot of us struggling. And while, you know, we're there, we are in business, perhaps we fell in by default, perhaps we chose it, but having got that far, we find that we're struggling. We're not finding that it comes automatically to us, and it shouldn't. Why should it? But somehow when we start off, we think it will, and we think our passion is enough, it will carry us along. We think if we work hard enough at what we do, that sooner or later somebody's going to notice and we'll make money from it, and so on. So we've got all sorts of different kinds of ways of thinking about ourselves as business people that kind of gets in the way. So really we're being weighed down, and this workshop is about lightening up. It's about letting go of some of these blocks. So, but before we can let them go, we have to kind of understand what they are, and it's all very mixed up. So we have a lot of we call them in the club A, B, C, D, E, F, Gs. So attitudes, beliefs, concepts, denials, expectations, fears, and guilts around business. And they can present in all sorts of different ways, but essentially they create a fog, F-U-G, fear and uncertainty and guilt around money can create a great deal of barrier between us and just getting on with it. It uses up a lot of creative energy. So understanding the ways in which you are blocked is the first step, and we'll build on this workshop next time out and the time after to get beyond this. But today is very much about really identifying it and beginning to think about how we are going to get beyond it. So, yeah, let's look at the first type of block that can show up for us. So first of all, and most simply, I suppose, what can happen is that we don't actually know what business we want to create. And by that, I don't, that sounds a bit too obvious, but it really does happen an awful lot more than we might imagine. And okay, it can be as simple as I don't actually, I know that I want to run a passion-based business. I know that I want to do something I care about. I don't want to just do the profit thing, but I haven't got a clue what I want to do. That would be the simplest kind. But not knowing can kind of show up in different ways as well. So for example, you could be a self-publishing author, but you don't actually know what your business model is. Similarly, you could be an artist, a coach or whatever, and not know how to frame it in a way that you can offer the value to people who will value it. And so it's not enough to just know what kind of business you want to be in or want to create. You have to understand it as a business, not just as producing the products, producing the services. And we talked over the last couple of months about the 3 hats that you need to wear when you decide to go into create a business. One of them being the crafter hat, one of them being the director hat, and one of them being the entrepreneur hat. And those 3 being balance between those 3 being necessary for creative success in business. And so knowing what business you want to create also means having some idea of the business model that you want to have for that. Now, where have we gone? Sorry, I am losing track here. So, okay, Marie has reduced her screen size. So if others are having problems around it not being very stable, that might be a useful thing to do. Breda has made it. Hi, Breda, delighted to see you here. Okay, she's trying to make things happen, and hopefully we'll get there. Okay, so next type of block that we can have is the type of person who can't get started. So you know what you want to do, maybe you've always known, but you can't seem to get it going. And for some, this is a real problem. So while they are actually, absolutely certain what they want to do, they find that they're reading lots of programs about it and ways in which they could approach it, or they are talking about doing it to everyone who will listen. They are reading about it, going to conferences maybe, and it's not just a small business thing, this, and it's not just about, you can be well along and find that this hits you. So it's in bigger business, it's called the knowing doing gap. And it's identified as a problem there too. So you get companies who study all kinds of ways to improve and send their teams off on seminars and training days, hire consultants, do programs. But when it comes to actually implementing all that knowledge, it doesn't happen. And very often for a solo creativepreneur, the kind of people we're talking about, there's a gap between, they look around at what others are doing and just see a big gap between their own energy, their own ingenuity, their own creativity, and the people that they perceive to be a success. So pens to the ready, and if you just take a moment or two, do you have difficulty ever in getting something started? Do you know that there's something you want to do, but somehow you're not getting around to it? I'm just going to take 2 minutes on each of these, just very quickly make notes. Do you look at others and see a gap between what they're doing and what you're doing, things that they'd want to do that you would, things that they are doing and that you would like to be doing? So just write it down quickly. All you need to do in this workshop is just note what's happening. You don't need to come up with solutions, just note that it's happening. And also note that don't believe that if it isn't coming easily for you, that you're doing something wrong necessarily, or have made a mistake about what you should be doing, or that you haven't got what it takes, or any of those things that your critical voice is possibly telling you, or maybe even other people are telling you. There are many creative reasons why you can't get started, and that's what we'll be looking at next time. But for today, just make quick notes as to any time or any place where you have experienced this phenomenon. Okay, and if you find you have more to say on that, you can do some free writing around any of the things that are coming up for you in the workshop later on. Free writing, for those who don't know me and haven't been to a workshop before, is writing fast, writing raw, writing exact and easy. So when I ask you to make notes on this, you don't think, you just write. Just write whatever comes to your mind as fast as you can, and keep writing during the silence until we get on to talking again. Okay, so type 3 is struggling essentially. So you've made a start. There is this gap between where you are and where you want to be. Maybe you've made a good start, you might have had beginner's luck, you could have done quite well, but then comes a sort of dawning realization that there's quite a gap between where you are, where you want to be, and oh dear, there's an awful lot of work to be done. And usually the struggler finds that they're overworked and underpaid, too busy, but not having the impact that they believe they should be having. Everything, it's the struggler, so everything feels like a struggle. And again, very often people have the information, they've done the work, they've, in the sense of having read blogs and books and being busy, done coaching courses, maybe called in the consultants even, yet still feeling either blocked or confused, and there's an awful lot to be done. So at a business level, there are reasons. It could be something like your sales or your follow-up process is shaky, or you're not tracking your metrics, maybe your resources are not allocated properly. But what we're interested in here is what lies beneath that. There is a deeper sort of creative reason there as well. Sometimes people are waiting for a divine spark, and sometimes, very often, there's this belief in the virtue of hard work. If hard work created financial success, then the women of Africa would be coming down in money. So hard work itself is not it. What we're looking at is creative work, rest and play also. But for now, just take a note. Is this you? Are you struggling? Are you having the impact you want to have? Are you having the influence you want to have? Do you have the income you want to have? If not, why not? Quick notes. Write free, fast. Hi to Rana and Alexa. Thanks for dropping in. We're just on type 3 of the 7 ways in which creative block shows up, and people are just making a note of ways in which they may struggle within their business. So if you just want to do that and join us, okay, so the 4th way in which block can show up is that everything goes along great. You have worked out what you want to do. You have got started on a project or a campaign. You've taken it all the way through the 7 stages of the process. It was a success and you're very proud of yourself, or at least you're proud that you finished it. Maybe it wasn't as good as you hoped, but you learned a lot. You're still learning for next time, except next time isn't happening. So you can't seem to go again and you fear maybe that it's over for you. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for joining us. We are talking about the 7 kinds of creative block, and we're on to number 4 now. And this is where somehow, for some reason, it fizzles out. And again, here I'm talking about, particularly about business. So you might be producing goods and services, but from a business perspective, it isn't happening. Or it may be that suddenly you can't produce any goods or services anymore. You don't know why, but you can't actually reach out beyond yourself. One of the best examples of this is Ralph Ellison, who wrote Invisible Man. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that book. It was a really important African-American novel, and it won all sorts of awards in the US, National Book Award and various others I can't even recall now. And it came out in 1952. Ellison died in 1994. He spent every year between 52 and 94 working on the book. He had something like 2,000 pages of notes. He knew he was blocked and it was really painful for him, and he wrote in great detail about it. But all the time he was claiming the book is nearly finished, it's nearly finished, it's nearly finished. It wasn't until he died that somebody actually got it together. Now, that's obviously an extreme example, but what's interesting about those examples is he clearly knew enough about how to write to win these massive awards. He also knew how to get it to market. He had a publisher waiting. So he had his structure in place, but none of that was the source of the trouble. None of that was able to help him. You can be further along the line and find that this hits you. And there could be reasons for it that are to do with failure, getting burned, and so on. Julie's asking, still on type, she's telling me still on type 3 slide. Okay, on mine it says type 4. Thank you, Julie. Yes, I've got 2 screens here. Thank you. Yes, type 4. So yeah, just saying there that it can be because you got burned, maybe. Your first one didn't work out well, unlike Ellison, or something happened along the way where you had a failure that just hurt hard and you find it hard to overcome it. But it's rarely something that obvious. It's usually a little bit hidden. Maybe conditions have changed. Maybe there are family reasons. It could be all sorts of things. But often too, it could be just that your creative intention was to get to a certain point and you haven't revisited and put in a new intention. So just getting started was as far as you ever looked at, or getting to the point where you've got was as far as you ever imagined, and you need to kind of throw the imagination out again. So type 4 then. fizzled out? Have you fizzled out on anything that you want to be doing? Have you been told you're a one-hit wonder? The good thing about being here rather than in some of the earlier stages that we talked about is that you know you have the skills. If you've done it once, you can do it again. That's the good thing. But it can also make it even more troubling to find that you can't reach to where you want to go. So just 2 minutes to make notes on fizzling out, anywhere where the energy just isn't rising. Okay, the more experienced among you may find that we're now getting more into where you might be. The fifth issue that can arise is that you are producing, you're turning stuff out, but again, it isn't having the impact or influence that you want or expect. And the reason being on this one is because your actual products or services that you are making are weak or incomplete. So again, it's not usually a work issue here. You could in fact be driving yourself at a fierce pace and pushing stuff out at a great rate, but it's not developed enough. And I'm not talking here about the inevitable disjunction that we all feel between the work we've produced and how it compares to the vision we hold in our heads. I know I've quoted Iris Murdoch before because I love this quote: "Every book is the wreck of a perfect idea." This gap between the perfect imagining and what we actually manage to get out there. Well, every business is like that too. There's always a gap. It's never ideal, and that's really important to know and to note. But we can be happy and thriving within that, a perfect imperfection, if you want to call it that. You're getting on. You're rich, and you rich in ideas, rich in everything, and you're feeling good. That's a different thing than what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is painful. You know that you're not achieving what you could be, given your talents, given your resources, given the amount of work that you're doing, and given your creative intentions. There's a gap between them that isn't being bridged. Something else is at play here, and it isn't to do with work. It perhaps lies in your way of working, but that's much more generally about what I'm talking about here is process. There's some part of the process where you're not going deep enough, not opening up enough. It could be a laziness of spirit maybe, or body or mind. And it's often, in fact, experienced by those who are working too hard. There isn't enough rest, there isn't enough play, there isn't enough balance in the mix, and that is affecting the actual product or service that you're offering and or how you're offering it within the business. You don't have the time, the space, the creative energy to actually get things moving and flowing and in the way that you want to. Sometimes you might be second guessing the market or people pleasing, a great one among us creative types, or copying others. And I'm not, again, talking about the creative stealing that goes on inevitably in any creative endeavor, but I'm talking about kind of a slavish copying because you don't know what else to do. The signs here are the lack of money flow, sort of a feeling of unrest when you think about your business, maybe poor reviews, friends or fans not giving positive feedback. Again, this is a creative shortfall, and we'll look more in depth next time, next month, at how we handle all of these. But again, the first step is to clearly identify. So just casting your mind over the products and services that you've been producing over the last while, and the business model or the business framework or the business within which you are locating them, just very quickly write down ways in which you feel these might be underdeveloped. Okay, number 6 then is the stop-start syndrome. So you're productive, and when you produce well. So it isn't like before where you feel things are a little thin or incomplete or weak. You're happy with your production, but the production is interspersed with very long stretches of not producing so well, or days where very, very little gets done repeatedly. We all have days where it seems like nothing got done, but day after day of long sort of dry spell. And maybe you're in the middle of a dry spell right now, and if you are, it feels very painful. It's horrible. Or maybe you're producing well now, but you're already dreading the knowledge that this is going to stop, that you're not going to be able to keep it going. The other thing that can happen is that you kind of crash and burn regularly in your life. So, you go really well, but you work at a very intense pace, and then boom, it all falls away and you have to recover. Maybe you get ill, you're forced into downtime. Then you need to spend a lot of time recovering, getting back up. And when you do get back up, sooner or later, you get back into that over busy, over productive place. And again, boom. Now, I'm not talking about the natural ebb and flow. We spoke a little bit about ebb last time. Any of you who've listened regularly will know that I think creative ebb is as important as creative flow. It's the natural response, like breathing out to breathing in. But I'm not talking about natural downtime or good creative rest, not at all. You will experience this not as replenishment, but as exhaustion or procrastination or indolence, just a sense of flatness. And I often find with the stop starters that there's a superstition around. So creatives are famous for being superstitious, of course. Hemingway used to sharpen 20 pencils before he sat down to write. Couldn't write unless he did that. Just could not write unless he did that. Stravinsky, every single morning a Bach fugue, same one, couldn't compose if he didn't. And that, lots of us have these kinds of rituals. But superstition is a slightly different thing. Superstition for a creative kind of confuses outcome and cause. So can't write if I don't sharpen pencils, And when that is taken to a certain place, it can actually be a major creative block. So just a moment or two to think again about what I was talking about there, this stop-start motion. Do you see it in your life? Do you see it in your creative day? Do you experience it at all? Can you remember a time where this happened? Is this happening now? Or is your rhythm something that you're really happy with? Again, just take a few moments to make a note. Okay, and our final type 7 then, the wrong-footed. This is when you find, well, the most obvious one is when you're just in the wrong place. If you're in the wrong business sector, or you're in the wrong part of that sector, or you set up your business model in the wrong way, it doesn't suit you. So I was talking to somebody yesterday who had spent 6 months essentially setting up affiliate marketing on their website, and it became clear in the course of the conversation that that was the wrong decision, that they were never going to be able to feel good about affiliate marketing, and that they didn't even fully understand what was needed. And also, when they talked about it, understanding it wasn't going to help. It just wasn't right for them. So there was an unpicking of that, and an understanding that in fact they were already doing content marketing in a really brilliant way and could extend and expand that, and a real sense of relief at dropping what was wrong. So it's easy. Well, when I say easy, it's not easy. All of these are emotionally painful conditions, but it's easy to see, easier to see when you're just in the wrong area. I hate my work. Yeah, okay. And you can actually, funnily enough, find that you go to great lengths to get work that you don't like out of habit, out of the FUG we were talking about earlier, just conditions internal that we're not aware of. But a more common, subtle, not more common necessarily, but more subtle thing that arises with creatives is the shadow career, shadow business. So people who are working roughly in the area they want to be in, but not doing the thing they want to do because it feels more risky, or because they really, really want it. And there's something about what we really, really want that always scares us. So perhaps you're editing, for example, instead of what you really want to do is write. Or you're in arts administration, but you really want to be an actor, or you go into government lobbying instead of the kind of grassroots activism that you want to be involved in. A common cause is that we don't trust the thing we really love to do. At some level, we don't feel that we can have it and money too. So we think we have to do this for money if we do what we really, really love somewhat separately. We can be drawn in by rewards from things that we don't like as much, the obvious money or prestige or power or whatever, but it doesn't sit well on us. And what happens is you wind up in a place where you've very little satisfaction in the tasks that you're doing and the skills that they require, and in the value of the work that you're doing beyond the money that it's bringing you. And, if you choose something because it has good financial outcome, you get that good financial outcome, but you don't get the other things that you need. And you can have the good financial outcome and the thing you love as well. It's just that you maybe don't believe that you can have that. So just a couple of moments then again to look at that. Are you in any way, and it doesn't have to be completely, it can just be in a part of what you're doing, or it may be completely, are you in any way in the wrong work, or are you doing the wrong niche? Sometimes, we choose the work well, but then we decide to address it to a niche of people who will be more likely to be able to pay us, for example, or we just choose them for some reason, not because they're the people we really want to work with. Again, we maybe find that too scary to do. So it could be the wrong niche, not the wrong work necessarily, or the wrong business. Or have you created a shadow business? Have you put all your time and effort into building something up when what you really wanted to do was something else? So just take a moment or two to make quick notes around this. Okay, so they are the syndromes. And as I said, in our next workshop next month, we are going to look in detail at how these are approached and dissolved the creative way, and how you can get beyond it, find the right business model, the right niche, and the right way to set things up for yourself. But just to conclude today, just to talk a little bit in general terms about how these things are examined and the approach that we take when we talk about going creative, when we talk about curing these things in a creative way. So there would be conventional and business-like strategic approaches to some of these, but what I feel is far more effective and works far better for creative type people who are engaged with a mission or a passion, is to approach it from a creative perspective. And first of all, that means thinking about, what is it to be creative in your business? What does it look like for you? You need to begin to engage with that as a possibility and as a concept. So very often we're highly creative in our actual products, in our projects, in our campaigns, and in the things that we do, but at the business level, at the level of earning money, how creative are you around that? How creative do you allow yourself to be? Do you mentally keep creative and commercial miles apart in your mind? Do you see them as enemies? What is your family history around stuff like that? The second thing you need to do is you need to understand how a successful creativepreneur actually functions and goes about their day. So it's one thing to be a creative, it's one thing to be a business person. To bring those two together requires certain principles that are universal across everybody. Yes, it very often looks very different on the outside, depending on who you're looking at and how they go about things. But underneath that, there are basic core principles that everybody shares. And we will talk about those next month. So you need to get an understanding of how people who do what you want to do at the level that you want to do it, what their day looks like and how it compares to yours, what their household affairs look like, their relationships. And you need to set up at the personal level, really begin to think about how you arrange your relationships, your time, and of course your own mind and body and spirit, your own work, rest and play, so that they feed this creative intention of yours. So they help you instead of hindering you. So very often we say we want certain things, but we've set up our life to go in quite a different direction, or our life is carrying over ways of being, both in terms of our relationship to time, to space, and to the our loved ones, the people around us. We haven't sorted out what we need to sort out in order for us to do what we want to do, in order for us to fulfill the creative intention that we have around the business or would like to have, but haven't actually put that in place. So we can think about it a lot, we can talk about it a lot, but the only thing that counts here is action, having actually done it and made it happen. And then at the business level, so that was kind of like at the personal level of what needs to happen. At the business level, we're talking about designing a business structure and a business model and a business setup that, number one, actually has success built into it, because some people are working very hard on models that are never going to work. They're never going to actually deliver the intentions that have been put around them. So, and secondly, that it really suits you, that it works, it is you-shaped, it works in the way that you need it to work, it aligns with your way of doing things. And then you need to understand assets, what it is to build a creative digital asset, and also processes, the processes within the business, how they feed what happens. And every creative has a creative process, which they bring again to the making of the products or the making of the services, but don't think about the process as it happens within the business side of things, and how creative and how fun all that can be if you drop the conventional ways of doing things that you're told you have to do and actually look at processes that suit you, because digital allows us to reinvent a huge amount of what has been done in the past, and we are pioneers. We're actually making these things happen. Tools are being invented right around us by people like us who understand that our needs are very different from conventional business. So again, we look more closely at that next time, and there'll be worksheets to fill out, which will actually help you to understand your own asset building and your own internal processes and how to implement them, how you best implement them while retaining a creative perspective. So before I let you go, you've been very patient and stayed here a very long time. If anybody has any questions that you want to put into the comment box, please feel free. I can answer them now. Or if there's any comment or anything, maybe you're all gone. If there's anything you'd like to say. Otherwise, we will regroup again next month on the first Tuesday of the month. Thank you for all the loves and likes. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to take it that everything is clear. If you want to, great, Debbie liked the free writing. Free writing is miraculous. It's just marvelous. It's actually one of the core processes. Without it, it just can't. It just doesn't work. So yeah, if any of you have any questions or anything that I can help with, just drop me a line on the info@ornaross.com. Yes, having time to write down the questions. Lots of food for thought. Good. And next month, we'll be looking much more at solutions and how we get beyond these various forms of blockers. So yeah, any questions that you want to PM me, write at info@ornaross.com. If you want to make a public comment, you can do that here on the event or on the guest book either at ornaross.com. And thank you for bearing with us. I'll do some research into seeing how we felt about this platform and how it compared to the other one, and we'll keep going till we get a platform that we love. But hopefully that was of some help to you, and thanks for being here. Talk to you again soon. Bye bye.